Welcome to This Explainer. Have you ever caught yourself wondering how your private internal sense of self-worth actually, changes the physical world around you? It's a pretty wild thought. Today, we're looking at the profound connection between our internal emotional states and the very real tangible impact we have on society. If you've ever thought about how your personal sense of worth translates into the physical world, well, you are absolutely in the right place. We're going to unpack this brilliant conceptual framework that totally redefines how we view our own emotional health. We're talking about moving away from seeing it as just a private matter to be discussed behind closed doors, and instead seeing it as the literal foundational architecture of our communities.
Okay, let's dive into this. Just sit with this thought for a second. The essence of dignity is to be an asset to yourself, to your family, to your community. And the essence of despair is to be a liability to others. We usually think of dignity and despair as completely private emotions, right? Like if someone is experiencing despair, we view it as an isolated tragedy, kind of like a dark cloud hanging over just that one individual. But this perspective fundamentally shifts that whole idea. It argues that these internal states manifest outwardly. They have actual weight, momentum, and mass. When we treat emotional health purely as a solitary experience, we're missing the broader reality. These states have real-world consequences. They literally change the air in the room, altering the lives of everyone we come into contact with.
So, it forces us to ask a rather stark, uncompromising question. Are we assets or are we liabilities? Yeah, I know, it's a heavy question, but it's meant to challenge us. It strips away all the noise, cuts right through our excuses, and asks us to look at the net result of our daily actions. Think about it. Are your daily routines, like the way you speak to a cashier, how you handle a stressful deadline at work, or even how you show up at the dinner table, adding to the collective reserves, or are they pulling from it? Before we can answer that honestly, though, we need to systematically break down exactly what this means in practical terms.
Section 1. Dignity versus despair.
Here, these two core concepts are reframed in almost economic terms, which is super fascinating. Dignity is defined as an asset. It has intrinsic value, it appreciates over time, and it provides real structural support to the entity holding it. It's like a house with a solid foundation. When a massive storm hits, that foundation doesn't just hold the house up, it protects the people inside. Someone operating from a place of dignity acts as that exact kind of structural support during a crisis. Despair, on the other hand, is defined as a liability. It acts like a debt. It's constantly drawing resources away and creating systemic weakness. If a person is drowning in despair, they aren't just suffering internally. They inevitably require time, energy, and emotional resources from those around them, literally just to stay afloat. By looking at human emotion through this lens, we stop seeing despair merely as a sadness to be pitied, and we start seeing it as a systemic liability that needs to be addressed for the health of the whole. And we see dignity not just as personal pride, but as a vital, shared resource.
And this structure reveals exactly how a cascading impact occurs. You can't just leap ahead to impact step 3 without first securing step 1. The framework outlines a clear, expanding circle starting with the self, expanding outward to the family, and finally reaching the broader community. It shows us how deeply interconnected individual well-being and societal prosperity truly are. You simply cannot build a thriving, resilient community out of individuals who are structurally compromised. The math just doesn't work out. Let's break down each of these steps to see how this chain reaction unfolds.
Section 2. The self. Worth versus neglect.
At this micro level, the innermost ring of our circle, the contrast is stark. On the side of dignity, we have self-worth. A person with dignity values themselves and actively strives for personal growth. It's a very active, forward-moving posture. So what does that actually look like practically? Well, it looks like setting healthy boundaries, taking the time to learn a new skill, or simply maintaining your physical health. You're doing the daily work to build the asset. On the flip side, representing despair, is self-neglect. A person in despair often neglects their own well-being. This might manifest as ignoring health warnings, abandoning daily routines, or totally isolating away from friends. Notice how dignity starts proactively, with a relentless drive to grow and maintain, while despair begins passively, marked by a withdrawal of care for oneself. This internal environment is the absolute bedrock. It's the seed from which everything else grows.
Let's move to Section 3 and see how this builds into the family layer, contribution versus burden.
Now, what's really interesting here is how directly an individual's internal state dictates their role in the family dynamic. If you've cultivated that internal self-worth, you become a family contribution, a supportive and contributing member. You are a literal asset to the people closest to you. You have the emotional bandwidth to help a kid with homework, really listen to a spouse after a long day, or step up calmly during a family emergency. But if you're locked in self-neglect, you may become a family burden, a source of stress or dependency. Now, it's absolutely crucial to remember this isn't about blaming people who are struggling. It's simply about cause and effect. Despair inherently leaks out. It places a heavy emotional and sometimes financial tax on the family unit. When one person is operating at a deficit, the rest of the family has to work overtime to cover the shortfall, leading to exhaustion and tension within the home.
Section 4. The community. Engagement versus drain.
The pattern scales up perfectly. Dignity fuels community engagement. The individual actively participates in and contributes to their community. They become a pillar. And hey, a pillar doesn't have to be a mayor or a millionaire. It's the neighbor who organizes a block party, the volunteer at the local food bank, or even simply the person who picks up a piece of trash on the sidewalk instead of walking past it. They add value. Despair, conversely, results in a community drain. Individuals locked in despair might withdraw from society entirely, succumbing to apathy and cynicism. They might let public spaces decay because they feel no ownership over them. Or worse, they may engage in behaviors actively detrimental to the community. They become a measurable liability to the social fabric. The internal, private neglect we saw all the way back in step 1 has now compounded, shifting from a personal tragedy to a tangible drain on society at large.
Section 5. The ripple effect. So the crucial point here is that individual well-being and societal prosperity are deeply interconnected. They are not separate disciplines at all. You cannot have a highly prosperous, thriving society built on a foundation of individuals who are suffering in despair. Think of a flourishing economy or a safe neighborhood. Those aren't just a result of good policies. Nope. They are the sum total of thousands of individuals operating from a place of dignity. Our personal state of dignity or despair inherently scales up. It acts as the very invisible infrastructure that dictates the health, safety, and prosperity of the world around us. This ultimately leads to a really powerful, actionable progression. By cultivating dignity, starting strictly with that internal self-worth, the boundaries, the personal growth, you naturally begin contributing positively to your family and community. And by doing so, you are creating a ripple effect of positive change. It forces us to realize that true community change is utterly impossible without first doing the internal work. Cultivating dignity isn't just some private victory for your own mental health or a selfish pursuit of wellness. Actually, according to this architecture, doing the hard work to heal yourself is a profound civic duty. It's the ultimate catalyst for an outward-moving wave that betters the entire world.
Which leaves us with one final thought to reflect on today. Based on your own cascading impact, from your self-care routines to your family dynamics, all the way out to your role in your community, what kind of ripple effect are you putting out into the world? Are you building the architecture of dignity, or are you carrying the liability of despair? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating framework with me today. Keep learning, keep growing, and I'll see you in the next explainer.